Um, Hi. Oh my god, hi. Yeah, I'm Autumn. Hi. It's nice to meet you. You look lovely. You look great. Not not quite what I expected. No, that's not a bad thing. You know, something new, different, I guess. That that dress, it really brings out your cover. Yeah, I sorry, I'm not really used to this. I don't really do this that often. Shall we? We should maybe get to know each other a little better. Maybe if we play our cards right, I could delve into the covers. No, I mean like, but not like I. I would never. First date. So tell me a little bit about yourself. Hey, hello, and welcome, or welcome back, I suppose. You may have noticed things look a little bit different, basically. Sun's out, might as well film at my window, so I'm standing up. Another thing, if I start to look different throughout this video, that's because I'm filming it on different days. Usually I do my videos all in one go, but in this case, I've got 3 books to read, and it's not my usual format. This isn't just a, hey, here's what I've read this week kind of deal. So, basically, we've got something fun and fresh. Yeah, sorry, I don't actually think I explained what I meant there. I might look different because I'm filming it on different days, because I'm going to be filming the review for each one of these as I finish them. Isn't that neat and fun? So we might have some videos filmed here. Please don't, bless, I feel like the light just changed. I can fix it in editing, I think. I've got alright at that. We're gonna have some videos filmed where I usually do, some here now that the weather's getting better. It is what it is. So, as you've seen by the title, I'm doing Blind Date with a Book. You may have seen this before. I'm pretty sure Jack Edwards has done this. I first discovered it when I was at uni, I think. Basically, I've mentioned the society I was a part of. I had book clubs and all that sort of stuff with them. Shout out Aberystwyth English and Creative Writing Society. I do love them to pieces. These ones, however, are from the library, so I want to do the filming of this part as soon as I can. Because basically, if I'm going back to the library, I need to check my account for anything, or if I'm doing any reservations, that kind of jam. I'm going to see what's in my account, and I don't want to spoil myself with these. If you've not seen Blind Date with a Book before, basically, you get a book in plain wrapping paper, not even necessarily plain wrapping paper. You wrap it up so you can't see what's inside, but a brief description on the front. In this case, they've done genre, 3 small descriptions, little sort of here's what to expect, and we've got a little try something new at the bottom of this one. And I think, was that on here or was that one of the others? No, it was on one of the others there, because I didn't want to take the whole shelf. It was like something, it said along the lines of one of the librarians, whoever had wrapped and written on the front, had gone, hey, I've read everything by this author. So I picked 3 of them, because I think the others were junior fiction. There were 6 there, 3 adult fiction, just meaning not for children, not meaning saucy. I hate the phrase adult fiction so much because it always sounds a little bit like, ooh, adult fiction, saucy, lovely. But all of these are the adult fiction ones. It's not that I'm opposed to junior fiction, but give them to, when it's from the library, I generally go, yeah, let the kids read those ones. So, up first, we have a bit of non-fiction. Don't read a lot of non-fiction, I'll admit. We have historical themes and locations, Britain, social and military. This sounds entirely out of what I would usually read. Hang on, this might be quite loud. And mostly, I don't read a lot of stuff about the military, war, that kind of thing. Maybe some fiction, But I certainly, you know, I don't read a lot of non-fiction. The only stuff I've read in recent memory that's about the military was Cherry, reviewed earlier this year. So this is called Portillo's Hidden History of Britain. It's got a lovely cover on it. It says as seen on Channel 5, so I assume there is a show made of this, or this is the book summation, summation? I don't fucking know. You know what I'm talking about. This is by Michael Portillo, hence Portillo's Hidden History of Britain. And here's your cheeky blurb. In this wonderfully evocative book, Michael Portillo presents the hidden history of Britain through its lost or abandoned places and buildings. I'm sorry if you can hear the dogs barking next door. Covering a wide variety of historical themes, Portillo uses a combination of his own investigations and archive research, along with memories from those with connections to the site, who remember them in their heyday. From a once beautiful Art Deco cinema to an abandoned military base, and from sewers to hospitals, each location is brought vividly to life with fascinating insights and observations that provide a compelling and original perspective on Britain's social and military history. So, while I said I don't usually read non-fiction, this does seem like the kind of thing I might go towards, because this is... See, actually, I would usually read more ancient history. That is what I like, mostly because a lot of it's made up, and I think that's very funny. But all history is made up. You know, the whole history is written by the victors, that kind of thing. It's very, I'm sure I'll think of the word. It's very biased. It's very biased is the way history is written. All history books are very biased. It's why there's no women or people of colour. But, well, there are, but, you know, it's never written by those people from the stuff that we've got most of the time. But stuff like this wouldn't usually come up for me because, you know, I like just reading old history where it's like, yeah, this is some guy, like one person's account of a whole battle, and, you know, Herodotus has a lot to answer for. But this sounds really interesting because it's about, like, it's not just about war or the military or that sort of thing. It seems to also have a link to, like buildings and things like that. It's like a nice little exploration. Well, this is very much out of my wheelhouse, but we'll see what we think. Next up, we have some literary fiction. It is mysterious, a Ponzi scheme collapse, and has an eerie disappearance. Now, my thing with literary fiction is that I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with it. I've mentioned this when I talked about French Exit, because literary fiction can make you feel a bit stupid sometimes. Just because, in terms of content, a lot of the time, there's not much difference between literary fiction and commercial fiction. It's just generally to do with how it's written. And my issue with that is how pretentious is the author. Hopefully, this author not so pretentious. So this is called The Glass Hotel by Emily St. John Mandel. Certainly interesting. It's a beautiful cover. Very lovely. Very simple, but I do like that. You know, I said this with Tender as the Flesh, the audiobook cover of that. Really simple, but beautiful. So, Vincent is the beautiful bartender at the exclusive Hotel Cayete. When New York financier Jonathan Alcatus walks into the hotel and hands her his card, it is the beginning of their life together. That same night, a hooded figure scrawls a note on the windowed wall of the hotel. "Why don't you swallow broken glass?" Leon Prevant, a shipping executive, sees the words from the bar and is shaken to his core. When Alcatus's investment fund is revealed to be a Ponzi scheme, Leon loses his retirement savings in the fallout, but Vincent seemingly walks away unscathed, until, a decade later, she disappears from the deck of one of Leon's ships. This sounds cool as shit. I just hope it's not written in a way that will make me feel dumb. Or it's written in a way that's like, I get what you're trying to go for, but it's kind of boring. Give me a little bit of something. It's just about how pretentious something is. This, yeah, it sounds really interesting. I just hope it's not pretentious. given that for the past few months I've been mad into watching loads of content about anti-MLM stuff, Ponzi scheme, pyramid schemes, it's all under the same sort of radar. I think Ponzi schemes is generally more to do with like finances compared to pyramid schemes, which is more to do with businesses, I believe. Isn't Ponzi scheme where you like get fake investors or you get investors to invest in something that isn't real? I don't know actually much about that sort of thing. I don't really have to, for the most part. I don't have the sort of money to invest in a Ponzi scheme, like to invest in anything, real or fake. And I'm not going to join a fucking MLM. I'm not joining a pyramid scheme. I say that. I did once join Avon for maybe a few weeks because I was looking for a job and I was really struggling and just none of my applications were being accepted, and I was like, right, I'll just join Avon. And I got given the books. Like, I got given like a stack of the books to take to everybody's houses, and then I kept getting hounded to buy this fucking starter kit. And I was like, I don't want to buy the starter kit. I don't have to. I can sell people makeup without having a box of my own makeup. Like, I will buy Avon makeup slowly. It's not the worst makeup in the world. But no, I absolutely refused. And I didn't even say anything. I just stopped replying to anybody. Sorry, I opened this and I didn't say what it was because I was too busy bitching about multi-level marketing. So this is a zombie book, post-apocalyptic, obviously, with a wintry setting. Interesting twist on the zombie trope, and a male-male romance, which I'm always here for. As the good kind of MLM. Yeah, by the way, if I say anti-MLM, I mean anti-multi-level marketing scheme, not anti-men loving men. I am one of those things. I am not a pyramid. So this is called Wranglestone. I say that because I had to look it on the back. But, I mean, it's probably going to be an O. But after, you know, Wicker and Wicked Light thing. And I checked my file recently. I didn't check my file, but I was opening up Adobe to do my editing. And I realised that when I'd written the file, like, to put all, you know, my footage into, photos, whatever I needed to go into the final edit, I've written Wicked Light, not Wicker Light. That thing will not let me go. It's going to haunt me. And now every time I open up Adobe, that's just right there. So, great. I love that for me. The islands of Lake Wranglestone are a safe haven in a world filled with the restless dead. But as the lake freezes over, there's nothing to stop them from crossing the ice. Peter has never really felt home in a place where practicality and grit are valued above all else. He's nothing like Cooper, the boy he's always watched from afar. But when he is ordered to join Cooper out on the mainland, they find more than just each other. There, they unearth a dark secret about Wranglestone's past, one that forces the pair to question everything they've ever known. Bit of a vague blurb. I don't have much idea on, like, especially compared to the last one. You know, I felt like I had a fair amount of idea of what's going to go on with the story. Very little here, but gays. I mean, I'm a simple man. If you put gays in it, I'm probably going to watch it or read it or whatever. I mean, I am easily marketed towards, you know. Rainbow capitalism does get me sometimes. It's got hands. It does certainly sound interesting. Definitely the sort of thing that I would, if somebody, you know, posted that summary of a book and I was like, ooh, that would sound interesting, I probably would pick it up. I probably would have a little look-see, a little nosy. So, we've got our 3 books here. We've got these 3. And then we can come back once I've read each one. This will be a long video, probably. I mean, knowing how long my videos usually are anyway, I don't really do short videos, but that's just because I like to be able to really talk about books. Also, I ramble a lot, but you know this by now. All 5 of you that are my regular viewers. I love you all dearly. So, I will see you very soon. So, first up, we have Wranglestone by Darren Charlton. I thought this was so much fun. Exactly what I'm looking for. Sometimes it was emotionally draining, but also a great deal of fun. I.e., 10 out of 10 times. So this is, you got gays, you got zombies. A fun time all round. Actually, I say that, I'm not usually a huge fan of zombie content. They're just generally not for me. It takes a lot to make... I'm probably going to end up leaving that in. Basically, whenever I film up my window, I have to use masking tape to keep my blinds at the side. Otherwise, as you will have just seen there, they end up in shot. Hopefully they don't do that again. So what I was saying was, basically it takes a lot to make zombies interesting. I mean, I get that a lot of, you know, concepts there are very interesting concepts around zombies about the way they're used, but I think because I lived through it as if it was a hard time, but Walking Dead making zombies very zeitgeist, there was a bit of oversaturation of them, sort of similarly to how when Twilight came out, there was a lot of A, supernatural romance, and B, specifically vampire content and vampire romance. It's going to go again. The blinds are going to go again. Please don't do that to me. Thank you. I could hear the tape just going. It comes on. Don't you dare. But this was an interesting take on, I nearly said on vampires then, on zombies. At first, it seems relatively standard. I had a bit of an image of, I think just because of the very wintry setting, that kind of White Walker vibe thing. It's not that at all, but that was sort of the A, what I thought going in, and B, the initial feeling of what it was going to be. But it wasn't that at all, and there's some really interesting thoughts of basically how we treat the other. And I do not think it's a coincidence that the lead character is gay. That word is never outwardly used. No sexuality terms are ever used. It's just that he is super into a guy, and everybody around both him and this other guy can very clearly see that there should be something going on between them, up until the point where there actually is something. That's very early on. That's not a spoiler. Their romance is something that blossoms throughout the book, and it is both heartwarming and heartbreaking. I mean, it is certainly a take on Bury Your Gays. I mean, this is a spoiler. One of them, this is low-key a spoiler, one of them does get turned. But it is that moment that introduces the new aspect, the sort of newer version, well, not a newer version of zombies, but a newer take, I guess, on zombies that Darren Charlton is taking with them. I'm not going to go into details on that, but it is very interesting to read when you get to this idea of, like I said, his use of zombies is very much you treat the dead. In this case, it's, you know, you treat the dead the undead the way you do because that's how you've been told to treat them. But what if they aren't what you think? And, you know, like I said, this book having a very prominent gay romance with this idea of you treat X group badly, not because that's an inherent thing to do, but because you have been taught that generationally. It hit me in a very specific way. Now, I'm both bi and trans, and especially being trans at the minute, living in the UK with TERFs and whatever GC means. What is it? Gender critical or something? Whatever bullshit that J.K. Rowling and Graham Linehan is peddling at the minute. I'm the reason Graham Linehan got divorced. Me, I did that. I'm the trans person that caused Graham Linehan's divorce. But in all seriousness, there are millions of lives like mine being affected because of bullshit rhetoric and propaganda. That's what it is. That's what being a TERF is. It's just shilling bollocks. Because generationally people have believed and gone on to teach other people this. The issue now is that social media gives people a platform who maybe shouldn't have one. Fuck your wizard book. I don't care. Anyway, point being, the place I am, you know, being in the UK, where very prominent figures are, I'm a trans man, so generally they don't talk about us as much as trans women. I'm very much aware of that. But then there's also the, you know, oh, why do we have to say period having people? Because it's not just women. And I know this is a complete tangent, but it's not just women. And I don't just mean that it's not just females, because there are women who don't have periods, and there are women that do. There are, you know, older women who've been through the menopause. They won't have periods anymore. There are also younger, you know, girls who aren't women yet who do have periods, so you're not going to call them women. J.K. Rowling, stay in your lane and write your mediocre wizard books. I say mediocre because they're deeply quite anti-Semitic, so, you know. I'm a Slytherin. You're supporting a knobhead. Sorry. Anyway, I can't. This is why I generally don't talk about her, because it gets under my skin for obvious reasons, because I quite like having rights. Weird that, isn't it? Back to the book at hand. Bloody loved it. And this is 100% the sort of thing that had I seen it, I would have picked it up. And I would have been very happy with that. 100%. And I'm really glad to find this little surprise. I believe that this might be the first part in a series. If that is true, probably going to be looking for the rest of the series, because it's very good. It's very interesting, and I really like the way he talks about being othered. And also I want more gay content, because I'm simple. I'm a simple man. You hand me gays and I'll be like, yes, I'll have that, thank you. Nothing else matters. No, it does matter. The rest of the book is also very good, and I like that it's subtle in terms of the way, you know, we talk about the other. I mean, it's not the most, you know, hidden under layers of subtlety, but in terms of sexuality stuff, I like the way it's handled. I like that it's not necessarily, you know, because these are teenagers. This is a YA book, as far as I can tell. Generally, if your protagonist is 16, it's going to be a YA book. And like, I like that this is somebody figuring themselves out, but it's not necessarily another coming out story. I think that's interesting because, listen, coming out stories can be great, but I, personally, don't need loads of them. Sometimes it's nice to just have an established, these two characters are into each other, they both happen to be guys. Sometimes I do just want that. It's simple. It's easy. Don't say it is what it is. Don't say it. But yeah, if you are looking for some gay, read this. If you're looking for something that might low-key break your heart a little bit, but also you want some really quite soft gay romance, this might be for you, because this will be the sort of thing that I will be ashamed to say will be a comfort book, because it's not a comforting book at all. Not one bit. Also, I think it's worth pointing out that it's got a kind of Western flair to it, and I always think that's very fun. It's not like outright cowboys, but it's got a bit of a cowboy vibe to it, and I love me a cowboy. I blame Adam Page for this. I also blame Brokeback Mountain, although apparently they're not actually cowboys, but fucked if I know. Anyway, go read this book. It's very good, and I will be reading it again 100%, or at the very least I'll be getting the audiobook so I can listen to it frequently, because that is the easiest way for me to listen to books. Well, read books, but also listen. You know what I mean. Anyway, on to the next one. First up, I want to address the obvious. What's going on in my head? Yes, I am bleaching it again. We will see the results in the third and final part of this, I guess. Look, I needed to save some time, and I didn't want to have to wait for this to develop and then film and then be up kind of late, because I'm an old man when it comes to my sleep schedule. Quite frankly, I have to get up early for work, so I have to go to bed early. I go to bed at like 9:30. I wish I wasn't an old man, but that's exactly what I am. So, let's get into what we're here for. Actually, I do want to address, if I'm looking over here a lot, it's because I've got enough light from my lamp to check what my hair's looking like. You might be able to see some funky colours going on. So if I'm looking over there, I'm just checking that my hair, like vague colours of hair. And also, actually, before we get onto the review, I want to show you something that I picked up today while I was out. Also, if I'm squinting a lot, A, light, B, I can't wear my glasses when I'm bleaching my hair. So, I found, while I was out doing a little shopping, this beautiful Oscar Wilde collection. I believe it's just short stories. I don't know. I literally just saw it and went, oh, my gay little heart is in love with this beautiful, beautiful book. So I just thought I'd show you that. It's very pretty, it's very nice, and I got it for remarkably cheap because it was on sale, and I love that for me. I mean, as is blatantly clear, I have no impulse control. I don't even know if the colour's going to fully lift. Who knows what mess we're going to end up with by the end of this. Certainly not me. So, what you're actually here for is a review of The Glass Hotel by Emily St. John Mandel. Now, I remember one of the descriptors for this being that it was literary fiction, which I have a kind of spicy relationship with. Because this book, in the way that I felt with Margaret Atwood, could easily not be described as literary fiction. I can see why it is, mostly because it's very political, especially when it comes to like talking about like it talks a lot about the financial market, the crash in 2008, and it also like the main like one of the main cruxes of the plot is a huge Ponzi scheme going on, which I am not going to be able to explain properly what a Ponzi scheme is. Do I look like I know finances? As far as I'm aware, it's something to do with stock investment, but like false stock investment, like somebody taking money and be like, yeah, I'm going to invest it, and then they don't, or something like that. I don't fucking know. Not an expert. But anyway, this book does a good enough job of not making you feel like you need to know everything. It gives you enough information. It doesn't make you feel stupid while reading it, which I think a lot of stuff that does cover money, not covering money necessarily, but covering the wider financial market, sort of global economics, it's quite easy for a lot of books to make you feel like a fucking idiot, and a lot of people aren't doing it intentionally. But I didn't while reading this book, and I did appreciate that. But point I'm making is, it didn't feel like literary fiction in that way of pretension, all that. It wasn't pretentious, and I, once again, appreciate that. Just because I'm sick of pretentious authors all of the time. I can't stand them. Like, I mean, pretentious people in any field, obviously, bit of a knobhead, right? But I think just given that I am a writer, I know that at some point I'm going to have to regularly work, or I'm possibly going to have to regularly work with people like that, or work around people like that, and I'm just like, I don't want that, thank you. I will stick to writing genre fiction, because ew, genre fiction, oh, you're writing in a genre, disgusting. I am going to apologise for that. One of my favourite things with this book is the use of ghosts, and I don't mean that in its like spooky, creepy ghost story kind of way. There's just this idea of being haunted, often by one's mistakes, and for much of the book, so basically right up until the final moments, it is left relatively up in the air as to, are these ghosts real, or are they a sign of someone's madness, or I use madness very loosely there, but is it a sign of some kind of mental unrest? You know, one of the guys there, he is one of the guys who's being haunted. You know, he's aging, he's in prison, therefore he knows that, you know, he's not exactly in the place that is going to be best for his mental health. Another guy there is another guy who experiences this haunting is an addict, a heroin addict. So, you know, he's not exactly going to be in the best mental place himself. I like the way that it's handled. You know, this idea of being haunted by the past, and then at this final moment, it's right near the end of the final chapter, you find out what the ghosts mean, how they work, kind of thing. And it doesn't feel like, here we go, this is all wrapped up in a little bow. And I know I use this phrase a lot, but I really appreciate that. I just think it's a really fascinating book to read. It's one that really ropes you in, because I actually tried reading this twice. So the first time I tried reading it, I wasn't finding my stride with it. I just think I was looking for something else, which is when I chose to read Wranglestone. Really got into it, suited me perfectly. Then towards the end of the week, I just started reading this and I just got hooked. I got mad into it. This is the sort of book where I find that personally, because it is literary fiction, there is a certain tone, a certain style of writing that it does mean that if I'm personally not in the right headspace, my little ADHD brain is going, yeah, we need to just simplify it a little bit, which is why Wranglestone worked for me earlier in the week. And then I really got into this and I just powered through it, which is really rare for a book like this, because something like Wranglestone, I understand how I would easily be able to go through it quite quickly because it's more simplistically written. It's designed for somebody a bit younger than me, you know. I mean, it's not really simplistically written like it's a children's book, but, you know, there is a noticeable difference between the two books like that. And it is rare for any kind of literary fiction, whether it is the super pretentious, I know you're an academic, you don't have to keep trying to fucking remind me type stuff, and also this, which is closer to the line of could be more just like contemporary commercial fiction, could be literary fiction, easily encompasses a wider range of intended audience. You know, as a whole with literary fiction, I generally can't read a lot of it at once. I don't mean like multiple books in a row, I mean like literally one book. I'm not necessarily going to be able to read a lot of it in one go, but I did with this one and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was fantastic. I did do a bit of alternating with audio and physical book. My only complaint with the audio book is that I don't know if the narrator is American or Canadian. Could be Canadian because I know quite a few of the characters in this are. She doesn't have the very thick, clear Canadian accent. I didn't recognise it in any like sort of like out about kind of sounds where you would maybe notice it a bit more with somebody with a thicker Canadian accent. But anyway, that's not the point. There are a couple of British accents in this. Not fantastic. I didn't know until I was told that there is that one of the characters there is from Newcastle. I thought that she was doing an Irish accent. That wasn't great. And with the Scottish accent, I knew that the character was Scottish because they were in a bar in Scotland and I could tell that that's where they were going with that voice. It was just a bit off, but it didn't ruin my enjoyment of it. It did take me out of the moment a little bit, but overall it hasn't dampened my enjoyment to the point where I couldn't read this book again, kind of thing. In fact, I probably will read this book again because I thought it was great. I thought it was fantastic. I particularly liked the way that everything fits together. You know, there's a lot of the way that different characters' lives interlink throughout, and I think that's fantastic. So yeah, I 100% recommend this book. I'm really glad that I was able to dive into it. I was able to find this. Not necessarily the sort of thing I would have picked up for myself. I don't think. maybe a little bit one of those sort of books where, you know, had I studied it, I would have been really glad that I had, because it's a really good book. But I wouldn't necessarily have, if I'd have picked this up off the shelf at the library and read the back, I maybe would have gone, sounds interesting, not so sure. But I'm really glad I have read it. So there you go. Have a little check. Yeah, have a little check out of this yourself, because it's really, really interesting. And if you do have any sort of, if you enjoy stuff about things like Ponzi schemes and that kind of thing, this is definitely for you. I mean, it's not exclusively about a Ponzi scheme, but one of the characters that sort of links a lot of other people in the book, he's running a Ponzi scheme, and that kind of, you know, when I say everything's interlinked, that kind of works with that. So go and check it out, have a good time, and yeah, I'll see you probably with no hair left, it's probably all fallen out, but I'll see you with new hair for my final review and the wrap up of this little experiment fun time. Have fun. So, final part of this little review sesh. I'll do a little wrap up after I've done this review as well. So, the final book, Portillo's Hidden... Great start. Final book, Portillo's Hidden History of Britain by Michael Portillo. I didn't know anything about this man before I started reading it. By the way, that makes it sound like I'm going to find out something horrible. Well, I mean, he's a Tory, but he also hates Boris. So, pros and cons. The cons do outweigh, though. But anyhow, that is not that important to this book. You can very much still enjoy this book. I just wanted to get it out of the way, because I was like, oh, that's who, like, I knew nothing about him. I knew that he'd done some TV presenting, because this book is based on a show. I didn't know who he was beyond that. Maybe if I was older, I would, because he was Secretary for Defense in the, like, mid-90s under John Major. But anyway, not that important. Let's get on with the review. I thoroughly enjoyed this book. He writes the way I imagine he presents. Now, I haven't watched the show, but if you watch any kind of historical documentary, British historical documentary, I don't necessarily mean about Britain, although this is, but words, like, produced in the UK by British people kind of thing, there's a particular tone of voice that's used, this certain cadence in the way that presenters often talk, especially, you know, there is a bit of a difference between the way men talk and the way women talk, just in general with these shows, but I imagine that if I did go on to watch any of his shows, I imagine it would sound exactly like the way he writes, which is not that unusual. People do often write in a similar kind of way to the way they talk, especially when they're writing creative non-fiction that's not very... I was going to sound really petty, but it's not very academic. What I mean by that is, this doesn't sound like an academic paper. It sounds a bit more casual. It sounds, like I have said a million times, like the way that TV presenters talk. Again, makes sense. In the way that if you read any sort of... And so I've read a couple books by celebrities, not necessarily autobiographies. So Andrew O'Neill's History of Heavy Metal, and I can't remember his name. He runs Progress Wrestling and wrote the book I'm Sorry I Love You. It's a history of pro wrestling. Both great books, both by Headline, by the way, which I assume they've got a bit of a thing with that kind of book. But anyway, those books both have that kind of, this is informative, but it's not got an academic style, which I like, because I have spent enough of my life reading academic papers. I don't need to do any more of it, thank you. I have nothing but respect for people who continue their life into academia. I have no interest in it. When I read non-fiction, I want non-fiction like this, generally, something a bit more casual. I thought it was really interesting. I like the way that the history interweaves, the way he talks about people and the build, like, because it's about the significance of buildings and structures and that kind of thing, but at its core, it's actually about people and the way those buildings were, in some form or another, a home for people. You know, the talk of the London Road fire station in Manchester, the way that, I mean, that was literally a home for people. It was like this sort of commune where it wasn't just the fire station, and it was also a police station. It was also like there were flats there. There was a gym there, and you know, it is now just a block of flats from what I can tell. But you know, he brings in people's lives and talks about the way that in every aspect of what he talks about, it's always about how that place affected people. Most interestingly was one of the hospitals. I can't remember exactly which one. I think there were 2 hospitals that he talked about, maybe 3, because I don't have a good memory. And a lot of the hospital talk was about military, like, was talking about the military hospitals, and they're all kind of blend into me. But there, something that I wasn't expecting was, well, I wasn't expecting it, certainly given political affiliations. One of the doctors who was at one of these hospitals was a plastic surgeon who really, well, I say plastic surgeon, I don't know if that's the right phrase, a reconstructive surgeon who basically really made huge waves in the way that skin grafts are done, mostly for people who'd suffered wounds in war. And that doctor then went on to do great work in the trans community. Now, non-intentionally, as far as I can tell, the specifics of how gender identity is talked about in this book isn't done perfectly, but I don't think there's any malice in it. I genuinely don't. I think it's just a little bit, I mean, this book isn't that old, but from a point of view of a man who I believe is a bit older, and also given that he was like serving as an MP in the 90s, he was, you know, he must have been an adult at that point, probably in at least his, you know, late 20s, early 30s when he's serving for someone at something like that, given that he, you know, had quite a high state of office. So he's going to be a bit older. And also he was talking about like a Humphrey Bogart film being one of his early experiences with cinema. So again, he's an older gentleman. He's not necessarily going to be woke given his political affiliations, but he handles it better than could have been. It seems to be it's an empathetic view of this guy's work, this doctor's work. And no, I can't remember his name, but that's because I'm awful with names in general. But he did the first, I believe both the first, I'll use the phrase bottom surgery just because it's the easiest way of explaining it, because I can't remember the exact surgery that he performed, especially on the female to male trans person, because they're different types of surgery there, but I know he said that on the first male to female trans woman did the first gender reassignment surgery, first bottom surgery in the UK, and I believe that's the same with female to male, and I think that's incredible. And there's a little bit of, you know, misuse of pronouns, and like there's a bit of a strange thing we're talking about. So he talks to somebody's daughter, one of the woman that was the first to have that surgery, talking to her daughter, and there's a little bit of, oh, but I was, you know, a daddy's girl, and I kind of miss him, and there's a little bit of that, and it's like, okay, I get it. And also, again, an age thing, it happens. But like I said, one, in no way did I ever feel like, oh, this is offensive and I feel uncomfortable, which, you know, I am a trans. Sorry, Ms. Rowling. But I didn't feel uncomfortable by it. It didn't, you know, harm my enjoyment of the book, not even that section of the book. And actually I was surprised also the fact that non-binary people are even mentioned. Because, again, a lot of, you know, conservative people are not likely to register the fact that there is more than just the binary gender system kind of thing. And, you know, it was nice. I do think that this book in general is the sort of thing that had I bought it, I wouldn't have read it so quickly. That's nothing against the book. I just mean that, as with a lot of non-fiction, I often find that it's something I prefer to dip in and out of, especially when it's kind of non-linear, non-biographical and that kind of thing. So if I'm reading an autobiography or a memoir or something like that, I can often read it a bit quicker, mostly because it's more like a story or a collection of stories, that kind of thing. Whereas with this, it's a little more disjointed. You know, you have each section based on a different building, and it would have been nice to, like, I think if I had my own copy of this, I'd probably just dip in and out of it every now and again. And I think that's fine. You don't have to read books really quickly. And that could be any type of book. You don't have to read books quickly. But yeah, I enjoyed this. I probably wouldn't have picked it out myself. I probably won't read it again. But if you are, you know, interested in history, and if you're interested in history in a way that I definitely am, which is a general, hey, isn't this fun and interesting to learn about, rather than you have necessarily a specific area you like to delve into, then this sort of thing could be really fun. I personally would get a library copy, but that's because I don't want to fund any Tories. But, you know, that's just me. And again, it doesn't actually affect any part of this book. Not really. Apart from when I can't remember exactly what the section of the book was that prompted him to get like this, but it was basically a whole section of, isn't Boris a bit of a wanker? And then, like, yeah, isn't he a little bit? But yeah, I think this book is fun. It's when I read books like this that I do think, yeah, I should read more non-fiction, which I am doing next week. So there's that. One of the books I've got for next week, you will see that. I'm not going to tell you what I'm doing. It's a surprise. Isn't that fun? I am always fun, jazzy, and surprising. Anyway, but yeah, I'm doing a bit more non-fiction next week. Not non-fiction like this, it's a memoir, so there's that. But yeah, it makes me think maybe I should read more non-fiction again, but then I get non-fiction from the library, so I tend to have to read it a bit quicker, and I don't like reading non-fiction a bit quicker, so I should just get more non-fiction audiobooks, because I can read them at my own pace a little bit better. But it is what it is. And there we go. So, we have now read through all of the books. Also, yeah, I'm aware that I think I've had a different colour for each section of this video. Well, sort of with the last part, I was actually bleaching my hair. Here is the result of what I did afterwards. I don't know what you expect from me. Honestly, I am fickle when it comes to my hair. I will go through a phase of doing this for ages, and then I will dye it brown, and then I'll maybe have a week of dyeing it brown, and then be like, oh, but that's not fun enough. So I'll have a streak, and then the streak will usually last for like a couple of months, and then I'm like, oh, but I could just like dye it again, and then the cycle just continues because I can't shave my head anymore because I'm trying to grow my hair. If my hairline's going to keep receding, I might as well have fun with it until I'm inevitably a little egg. Anyway, tangents aside, blind date with a book. I thought it was super fun. I would definitely do it again, and I would probably do it again from my local library as well, just because if I don't like it, I haven't paid for it. I mean, why not? I mean, surely that's the best way to go about it, right? I thought this was so much fun, and you know, if your local library is doing something like this, or if you do want to find somewhere where you can pay for it, if you're happy enough to do that, go for it. It's a lot of fun, and you get to explore new things. Because let me get the books out that I had. So, thinking about it, there's only one book in this that I would have probably picked up for myself. Well, actually, no. There's one book that I definitely would have picked up for myself, and that's Wranglestone. Because even without the description of finding out, you know, because one of the bits written on the wrapping paper was like that it had a male-male romance in it, which makes me happy. But, you know, I think that is written on the back. Yeah. It is written on the back that, you know, but that there's some gayness going on, which is fun. And, you know, even if it is zombies, which generally isn't my favourite of the supernatural beings, this book would have sounded interesting to me, and especially if I was on a bit of a, I want something a bit more simple because I want something YA. No, not because I want something YA. I want something YA because I want something a little more simple. This would have been up my street, and it's great fun. I definitely wouldn't. I genuinely don't think I would have picked up Hidden History of Britain. One, because I don't go in the non-fiction section that often, as I've said. And two, I just... a lot of the time, it's just a case of, oh, this sounds kind of interesting, but I probably won't read it. It'll be fine. Maybe I'll, like, get an audiobook of it at some point or something like that. See if it's on BorrowBox. I just probably wouldn't have picked it up. I just... a lot of the times if I'm reading non-fiction, it's either through recommendation or it's because it's something that I'm interested in. So the two books I mentioned earlier, I like heavy metal, I like wrestling, so I'm going to read them. Or things like autobiographies and memoirs, they're usually people that I like. So on my shelf I have Bruce Dickinson's, Christopher Eccleston's, Drew McIntyre's. I've only read one of those, but the other two are on the... they're in the box to be read at some point. So, you know, I mean, I think that's normal to read non-fiction in areas which you're actually, you know, interested in. But, you know, I think, you know, I'll say I should read more non-fiction. I won't. Not unless it fits into the two categories I just said, which is recommendation or in my area of joy. But I've done it before. I can't remember exactly what it's called. It was something like a walk around Berlin or something like that. I reviewed it last year, I think sort of towards the end of the year, and I thought that was a lot of fun. I think I think you have to be in a mood for non-fiction, which, as it happened, I was this time. And the Glass... hello. And the Glass Hotel, I don't know if I would have picked it up. I think it might be one of those where if I was in the right mood, I would have gone, that sounds really interesting, let's give this a go, and I would have been really happy because it was a really bloody good book. But the description, even without having had the wrapping paper sort of telling me that it's literary fiction, the blurb itself does give you enough knowledge of that, and I don't think I need to discuss my feelings on it. I am apprehensive about literary fiction because I don't want to feel like I'm being talked down to. Also, sometimes my issue with non-fiction as well. So, yeah, that is Blind Date with a Book. I have certainly had a wonderful time. I will almost definitely do this again in the same way that I did the 6 of the best. I'll probably leave it a while until I do it again. Hopefully they're still doing it in the future because I had a lot of fun with this. So yeah, let me know if you've read any of these books, or if you're, now interested in reading any of these books, and let me know if you've done any like blind date with the book or that kind of thing before, and if you also had a good experience with it, because I definitely did this time, but I also know that it could have been a bit of a nightmare quite frankly, because for review, because I'm reading books for review, especially a lot of the library books, like the library books like this, like with 6 of the Best or with Blind Date with the Book, I'm very much in a state of, even if I'm not necessarily really enjoying this, I have to see it through to the end. See my thoughts on French Exit. So sometimes I'm like, I could be in for a disaster here, and I've just gotta ride the storm through to the end. But I didn't have to do that here, and I'm really glad. So, who knows? Maybe when I do that again, that will happen. Or actually, I don't think, I was about to say maybe that'll happen next week with what I've got, but I can't see that happening, because I mean, all but one of the books, I have quite a few books to read for next week. All but one of them are definitely books that I would have read for myself, even if, the sort of thing that I would pick up for myself. They seem really interesting. The only one that isn't is because it's a memoir or an autobiography, from what I can tell, of somebody who I'm not particularly aware of, but it is, the thing that I'm doing for next week. It's all about me experiencing new things, enjoying something a little bit out of my box kind of vibes. So I hope you all have a wonderful whenever you're watching this. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you all very soon.